Welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. I am so excited to invite you into today's show where we have the special guest, Kim Kiyosaki. I'm your host, Daniel Wood, one of the founders of Momentum Property Education. And we're so proud to have Kim Kiyosaki on as a guest here today. We've worked with Kim and her husband, Robert, for years on the Cashflow game. We've had Kim as a speaker here in Sweden, and we just love working with them. If you don't recognize the name Kim Kiyosaki, well, she is one of the authors, together with Robert, of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that was written in the 90s, has sold since in 30 million copies, been a New York Times bestseller, and was even featured on Oprah, meaning we know it's awesome. Kim is such an inspiration to me in creating the cash flow game, teaching people how to start investing, how to create passive income. She's written the book Rich Woman, and as I said, we've had her as a keynote here in Sweden, where she impacted hundreds of lives and helped people start creating their dream life. What makes Kim so special is her force of giving. She's out to give and help improve the lives of people all over the world by teaching financial literacy, financial knowledge. And she does that through her books, through their courses, through the cash flow game. We're so proud to have her come on this episode. In this episode, you're going to learn what they see is going on in the economy right now, what investments you should be doing, how they manage their portfolio of thousands of properties, and what she is working on improving in herself. So stay tuned. This is going to be a very, very exciting episode. And before you start, I want to give you a very special gift here from us. I really appreciate you taking this time to engage with us and listen to this episode. So we've created just for you a course, an introduction to property, where we'll teach you the 3 simple steps to property investing and the 3 most common mistakes new investors make and how to avoid them. This is a very powerful course, and I want to give it to you for free as an action taker bonus. I know as you've taken the time to listen to this episode, you are an action taker, so I want to reward that. To get this free course, what you need to do is just type in your URL bar, momentumgift.com. So it's coming from us at Momentum Property Education, momentumgift.com. You just register and we'll give you the free course, the 3 simple steps to property investing and the 3 most common mistakes new investors make and how to avoid them. By joining that, you will learn how you can start building your property portfolio, how you can go from wherever you are now to building your dream life. We show you how to find the very best deals in the market. We show you how money works in today's economy and how you can raise money, and that there are actually 25 sources of capital that you can use to fund your deals, only one of them being your own money. So that's very, very exciting. I hope you sign up for it. I hope to meet you there, momentumgift.com. And now, with no more ado whatsoever, let's get into the interview with Kim. Welcome.
Welcome to Momentum Investing, property investing made easy. One of the world's top podcasts on property investing, bringing you the top experts in the field so you can learn firsthand what it takes to create passive income and take control over your financial future.
Welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. I am so excited. We have an amazing guest here today. I'm here with Kim Kiyosaki. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Daniel. Love to be on your show, and hello to everybody in your community. Great to see you all.
Yeah, well, we have pretty much everyone in this community has read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. A lot of us have read Rich Woman, of course, as well. So we're super excited to have you here, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. It is completely nuts. So I thought if there's anyone to ask about what is going on and what is really going on, it's you and Robert. So please, what is happening right now? What should we do about it?
Oh, that's a great question. So the world changed like overnight. And I think for a lot of people, this has been a huge wake-up call, because people thought they had a safe, secure job, of which they don't. They thought their business was going to, survive and bring them forward. And many people, unfortunately, are losing their businesses. So there's a lot of negative. I don't know where it's going. I don't know where people are taking it. I don't know what's fueling a lot of this. We have our guesses, And the guesses are not positive things, because my biggest concern right now is that more and more rules and regulations, and I hate rules and regulations. I mean, to tell me to wear a mask, I go berserk. To tell me where I can go and where I can't go drives me crazy. My biggest concern is that if we don't all pay attention and we don't all stay on top of what is happening and get educated and not just follow the masses, but really think for ourselves, if we don't do that, more and more of our liberties and our freedoms are going to be taken away. So this is a time for us to be very vigilant in a positive way, in a very aware way, and really pay attention, and don't just accept what people are telling you. Really dig and think, because social media, traditional media, a lot of that is not, they're feeding on our fear, on the negativity. I don't watch traditional media anymore, and I'm very careful of what social media and online information I follow. But the most important thing I think at this time is we're going to need to be vigilant, and we're going to need to be educated and aware, and not just say, oh, okay, that's the way it is. Because I hate the word, the new normal. There's nothing normal about this. Nothing. I hate social distancing because there's nothing social about it. So all of these words that they're using. I think, personally, this is highly, highly over-exaggerated. Is there a virus? Yes, I think there's a virus. Is it as deadly and contagious? I don't think so. In my opinion, we've all seen what's happening. People are next to each other who are very sick. They don't get it. So there's more to it. Definitely. There's other agendas that have leaped into this and attached themselves to this whole agenda. So I think the most important thing is to really be aware and pay attention. And the last thing I'll say about this is there's a lot of negative that's come out of this, but there's also a lot of positive. And of course, I'm the eternal optimist. So, there's a lot of positive of people working from home. They're finding out they don't have to be attached to an office. They don't have to be in the city where their company is, which is a very big benefit. They're finding they're spending more time with their family. Technology is allowing us to do things that we never even thought about before. So, for example, at our company, we were all working from home, more productive, more effective than ever. I mean, we were just blown away by how the numbers were showing up. And we've just come back to the office 2 days a week, just because we want that physical interaction and that brainstorming that happens face to face. We're actually looking, because we don't need all of our office space. One of our biggest expenses is warehousing and shipping. We're thinking of turning our office into a warehouse to warehouse our products. So There's a lot of creativity and a lot of thinking that can come, because it is a different world. Things are not going to ever go back to the way they were. I'm hoping that when things do unfold here, that we move forward in a better, more positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that's been worrying me about like the overall economy is looking at like the stock market, for example. The stock market is so high right now. And, it's based on an economy that's essentially been standing still for the last 6 months. So, money hasn't been moving, yet the companies are going up in value. What are you guys, what do you think?
That's a great observation, because I even talked with our Rich Dad advisor, Andy Tanner. I'm like, Andy, they're saying August was their best month ever. And we've got the highest unemployment. We've got businesses closing right, left, and center. Yeah. We've got the economy in the toilet, yet the stock market, what is that? That just shows you
sales are down and the value of the company is up.
Yes. Well, it shows you that the stock market is no reflection of the economy. Yeah. None. Zero zip. It is highly manipulated. There's been a lot of companies buying back their stock. And what that means is they buy back their stock, which puts their stock price up, but nothing's changed. They haven't produced anything. They haven't added value to anything. All they've done is buy back their stock to get their stock price up. So it's all about getting the stock price up. It's not the fundamentals necessarily of a successful business.
Right. And so what would you recommend doing instead? Because obviously right now, a lot of people feel, most people have mutual funds that are only, exposed to the stock market. And they've obviously had a rally, which is great. but we all know that can't go on forever. So what should they be doing now?
Well, I'll just tell you what we're doing. And what we're doing is we are out of the stock market. Matter of fact, my mother passed away a few months ago.
I'm so sorry.
And thanks. And so they had inherited a large stock portfolio. They had a large stock portfolio. And we're looking, I mean, this is last month, we're looking at this going, okay, this can't go on forever. And yes, we could wait and maybe get a few more dollars, but you know what? At some point, it's going to come down.
And it's going to go fast.
Let's just cut it now. We know we're going to do well now if we sell. We just sold everything. Robert and I have never been much in the stock market because there's no control. We have no control over what a company does and how their stock prices go up and down. They are printing all over the world, lots and lots and lots and lots of money. So we are investing more and more in gold and silver, because as they keep printing dollars, yen, euro, everything, that money is going to become less and less valuable, and eventually will almost become worthless. We've seen predictions for gold. One gentleman says, a guy named Harry Dent, he says it's going down to 900. Then you got Jim Rickards saying, no, it's going to 15,000. So somewhere in between. But based on history and based on the theory behind it, gold and silver could be better because silver is so inexpensive and it's still being used today. So gold and silver should do very, very well. So those are two things that anybody today could invest in, not to hold dollars, because your dollars are and your euros and all of your currencies are probably going to be less and less valuable, but to hold something that's real and tangible. So we always invest in tangible assets, things that we can feel, touch, gold, silver, real estate, businesses still today. Yes, there's a lot of opportunity in businesses. There's going to be a lot of opportunities coming out of this whole thing.
Right. And that's, of course, important there to define that you're not investing in the stock market in businesses. You're actually investing in businesses. You're buying shares or ownership of the company.
Yes. Yep.
Because
we can talk to those owners, and we can, they can talk to us, and we can have an impact, and we can see what's happening, income, expense, debt, all of that, but not in the stock market.
No.
And also,
of course, you guys have knowledge. You can provide huge value to anyone you're investing in as well, which probably allows you to get a good deal, I can imagine.
Well, for example, we have two Rich Dad advisors, Lisa and Josh Lannon. You know Lisa Lannon.
Oh, of course, Lisa Lannon. Yes, of course.
So they're doing very well because they have drug and alcohol rehab for military veterans, first responders, police, firefighters, all of this. And especially given this whole pandemic, they're doing really well, and they're expanding. We've invested in their company because we're more investing in them. We know them. We know how diligent and how responsible and how smart and how business minded they are. And they also grew up with the whole Rich Dad philosophy. So we're very aligned. You know, I only want to invest with people whose mission I feel aligned to. Yeah. If I don't, why would I want to do that?
No, exactly. And obviously that's a company you can influence its growth as well, which is huge. Cool. So if we go to real estate, because obviously that's something everyone here in our community is interested in. And the real estate market also looks like, I mean, in the UK, we're actually having a bit of a rush on the value of property in the same way that the US stock market is running. So it's a very interesting times, but there's always deals out there. What are you guys doing with property, and what's your view on the real estate market?
Good question, Daniel. The one thing we always look at when we're investing in anything are the trends. What are the trends? So a lot of people are saying, oh, well, property is going to be so cheap. It's going to be so cheap. Well, where is it going to be cheap? And what type of property is going to be cheap? So you've got to look at, there's all sorts of different properties out there. For example, commercial real estate, office buildings. Right now, I wouldn't touch them. People are fleeing from them. Yeah. So I'm not going to put my money there. Senior housing, that's doing well. Other types of properties are doing very well. another trend that's happening here. I think it's happening all over the world. It's happening very much here in the US, which is people are fleeing the big cities. They're leaving New York, they're leaving Boston, they're leaving LA, they're leaving San Francisco, because they don't want to be in the big cities where they feel so vulnerable. So they're all moving to smaller towns, safer, I guess they feel safer towns. So for example, I was talking about my mom, we're selling her house she lived in a place called Hilton Head, South Carolina. It's a little beach community in South Carolina, really cute place. We hadn't even put the house on the market yet. We had just talked with the broker, put on a price. She talked to some of her broker friends. Within 2 days, we had a full price offer. We're like, oh, so we took it off the market, waited a couple days, raised the price, put it back on the market. Days later, full price offer, no contingencies. So people from the Northeast in the U.S., Boston, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, they're fleeing the Northeast and they're coming to down here.
Right.
So you got to look at where are people moving to, where are they fleeing from, and what type of property are people doing well in.
Ironically, we did the same thing. We just moved from Stockholm to Gotland, which is a smaller community here in Sweden. Yeah. And I think a part of it is, as you say, it's the fear, it's the running away. But a big part as well is, now we can do so much over Zoom. We used to physically have to be in Stockholm, so we felt kind of tied. We were forced to live there. Now we felt that, wait a second, we don't actually have to live in Stockholm anymore. We can go live, by the ocean. And so we took that step to do it. So it's both that companies are now allowing you to work from a distance.
Right. It makes a big difference. And companies, we got big companies, Silicon Valley in California is like a ghost town because everybody's left and they don't have to work from home. I just talked to my nephew who works for a big tech company in Silicon Valley. They don't want anybody back until like March of next year.
Oh, wow.
So, they're going to be working from home. And then I don't know that they'll ever go back.
No, exactly. Why would you pay all that money for a campus in Silicon Valley when you can just have everyone work from home and be happier anyway? Right.
And, another thing that's happening here, and I know it's happening worldwide, is because of everybody losing jobs and the economy basically being shut down, is there's going to be a huge increase in taxes. So, for example, people are fleeing California and New York because they're raising taxes like crazy.
Right.
And people are like, why would if I don't have to live in California, although it's a beautiful place to live, great beaches, nice ocean, I can live somewhere else and do my Zoom calls and work from home and not have to be at the effect of horrific taxes that are crippling people. So that's another trend that we're seeing as well.
Right. And that's going to be very interesting to follow how that continues. There's so much that's going to happen with the economy overall.
Yeah.
And of course, I can imagine one difference that we have in the UK versus, for example, the US. The US is obviously, it's so big. It's just so much room. In somewhere like the UK, it's much smaller. So one thing we're looking at a lot at now is converting old offices into residential.
Yeah. That makes sense.
As you say, people are running. The value of a commercial property is falling to zero, but residential won't. But how is it in the U.S.? Is it because obviously people can? You have ghost towns there. We don't really have ghost towns over here in the same sense.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The mayor of New York City was pleading with the wealthy who have left to say, come back. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to raise the taxes. I didn't mean to defund the police. Come back. And everybody's like, are you kidding me? I'm not coming back. No, I think this is a trend I don't think will reverse. I think this trend will continue. Another trend that we're seeing are schools open in the UK, Daniel?
Yeah, we've opened up most things have opened up in Europe. And actually in Sweden, we never shut it down at all.
That's true. You never did in Sweden. But there's another trend that's happening here, and it could be happening in other places, which is because even in colleges now, that's going to be a whole nother change because people aren't there. They're not coming. They're losing millions of dollars because the athletic programs have stopped. But there's going to be a big trend in tutoring and homeschooling. So I just talked to my niece the other day. She was going to go back and get her teaching certificate, but then the school shut down. So I'm like, well, then go tutor, go homeschool, because she's a great teacher. Homeschool your neighbors' kids. They'll pay for it. They'll pay for that. So maybe a possible real estate buy could be turning a home or turning an office building into like a home school center, where, because parents, if they're working, they can't be home with the kids. They've got to work.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's like politicians don't think, no, we're just going to have, you're just going to have to homeschool your kids. And they're like, well, we're working. We can't afford to homeschool our kids and work at the same time. So that's another trend. There's going to be a need for tutoring and for schooling. And it's actually a huge opportunity for a teacher if she wants or he wants to teach.
Yeah.
To do that. We're finding a lot of teachers don't want to teach here.
Right. They got time off and they're taking it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there are so many opportunities to start new businesses today because, just based on that, once old opportunities disappear, new ones pop up. Right.
Yes. And there will be a lot of new opportunities. Look at, you've got delivery. Everybody wants things delivered.
Yeah.
There's a whole warehousing, real estate warehousing is going to be huge because I think it was Amazon just bought somebody that had big, it might have been not Whole Foods, another.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But they bought stores for warehousing and for shipping centers. That's going to be a big trend. So, you look to that, you look to the small towns, you look to where people are running to. Converting, like you said, converting offices to other uses makes perfect sense. So there's a lot. You just have to be creative and start thinking differently and look to the future of what people are going to need, no matter which way this thing goes, because none of us know what tomorrow's going to bring. But whichever way this goes, where will you best, have the best bang for your buck, basically.
And I love the way that you say that. It's about following the trends. I just see, where are they running to? That's where you buy. You don't buy where they're running from.
Yeah. And you'll see, you could see it just in your local communities. Anybody walking around the street, you'll see what are people buying? What are they not doing? Are they driving? That's another trend here. People are driving because, as you said, the U.S. is such a big country. They're not flying, but they're taking long drives. We have a place up in a place called Sedona, Arizona, which is in the mountains of Arizona. It's a lodge. We're 100% full, but we're not full from the typical traveler, the typical guests. We're full from people that have driven from other states to stay there because it's kind of a refuge.
Oh, wow. So instead of them coming from all over the world by plane, they're now taking a drive from just the neighboring states to get out of their little apartment.
Yep. So driving, home repairs, home improvements, booming, even like camping and RVs. People they want to get out in nature. I personally don't think planes are dangerous. I've been on several. They're probably the cleanest place you can be right now. But it's this fear. The media, social media has just gotten everybody's so afraid that I think once people start to get out in the world and see, oh my God, I'm not going to die, I'm okay, then things will start moving again.
No, I agree. We went into personally, we went into total lockdown when the pandemic started and actually took our kids home for 2 months, even though we didn't have to. Until we could see, what were the trends on, what was the mortality rate in different ages. And we saw that, for kids and people in our age group, we weren't really in a risk factor. And, if you get hit, yes, it's like a really bad case of the flu. And, you can be unlucky that way. But at the same time, we are lucky in that we're not in that risk group. So we then made the decision that we could continue living our lives kind of like normal. Obviously, my dad is in the risk group, so we're really careful with him. But for those who are not, we can essentially live the way we have.
Yeah. As long as they just don't keep putting all these rules and regulations on us, we'll be okay.
Yeah. And so
the subtitle of my book is Because I Hate Being Told What to Do. Well, I'll tell you, this is pushing my limits.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things, rich woman, right? Take that control over your life. Our community was so excited to have you on this podcast. So I gave them a chance to ask some questions as well, because usually I hog all the fun myself. But today I'm going to share for once. Am I not nice? So I wanted to start with the property question. Obviously, you and Robert have a huge portfolio now after building it for decades. How do you manage all your portfolios?
Oh, that's a very good question. Really good question. Just a little quick history is when we started, I was managing the properties, buying single family homes, then duplex, then sixplex, then 12 units. And then we sold everything. We were in Oregon, and then we sold everything and moved it to Arizona and bought there. I was very fortunate on a 30-unit apartment building that we bought to have a manager who had been managing that property for like 25 years, and she taught me management. I really learned a lot about management from her. But at that point, then we had about 80 units, and I was overseeing all of it with on-site managers, and I didn't also running the Rich Dad company. And I kind of stopped. We stopped buying because we couldn't manage anymore. Right. And it's I think it's a place where a lot of people get to is like they think they have to do it all themselves. Well, shortly thereafter, I met our Rich Dad advisor, Ken McElroy, who's our Rich Dad advisor on real estate. He had the exact same philosophy as Robert and I did, which is buy the property for cash flow, hold the property, don't sell it, don't flip it, which is exactly what we do to this day. And
I love that. We always tell all of our clients, our community, if the property is good enough to sell, it's even better to keep.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've taught every single real estate investor I've spoken with. I don't know one who ever said, "Oh, I'm so glad I sold that property." No, we all wish we had kept every one of our properties. Yeah. But when we met Kenny, and Kenny was in property management only, I said, "Oh, thank goodness! Now we could you please manage our properties so we can buy more?" And he said, "No." And I'm like, "Why not?" And he said, "Because at that point, the biggest property we had was 35 units. He said, I only manage properties of 100 units or more." And I'm like, oh, shoot, now what? And then so I look at each other. I'm like, well, I guess that's what we're going to do next. So we did. We bought the next property. It was a larger unit, larger property. Kenny started managing it. Kenny and his partner Ross then went into investments. So bringing in investors to buy apartment houses. That's what they do today, and they do it really, really well. So now they have the property management company, they have the investment company, they have construction company. They do all of it.
They have the whole turnkey solution.
Yeah. But your question is so good, Daniel, or this person's question is so good.
Yeah, don't give me credit. It's not me.
Property management is the key. It is the key. Yes, you've got to buy a property right. You've got to know when you buy it, if it's not cash flowing, then you got to know what you need to do, and can you do it to make it cash flow? Yeah. But then you've got to manage it. That's where you make or break a deal. Yeah. So we were so fortunate to meet Kenny, and he's now our partner on so many properties, and his team is one of the best I've ever seen in property management. He actually, I'll just full circle. Yeah. So when I first asked him that question, he said no, because your properties are too small. And we still have one property that's 18 units. Right. And because I wasn't paying attention to it, it was not doing well. And so as a gift, Kenny's president said, I'm gonna put my son on it, and he's gonna manage it for you.
Now, is that a 12-year-old son and his first property to manage?
Oh, he's a little bit older. He's a little bit older.
Oh, but that's awesome, though. No, I love that, because everyone, we are so focused on acquiring the property, especially when you're just starting out. Most of our students, they're doing their first deals, and, so they're doing that initial part. But obviously, once you get a little further down the line, the property isn't newly refurbished anymore. There's just a lot more that can happen. You really need to have those teams in place and those partners.
You do. And I would say two things, Daniel. Number one is never take your eye off the property. When I've done that, it's been a disaster. When we always say, trust but verify. So you got to keep that pulse on the numbers. You got to get those numbers every month or twice a month. You never can take your eye off the property. And number two, you've got to treat every single property, and I know you do this, treat every single property as a business. Every single property we have is a business in itself. It's got income, it's got expenses, it's got debt, it's got management, it's got all of that. So
it's got its own P&L, it's got its own balance sheet.
Yes. So those are two of the things I've learned, especially never delegate too much. You got to delegate, but again, verify. And the numbers tell the story, as we all know. The numbers tell the story. So as long as you've got those numbers and you're paying attention to them every month, then you'll know what questions to ask.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And that's something we're working on putting in place right now. We're actually, I didn't mention this before, but we're actually right now, we're working with one of my mentors who's one of the founders of a Swiss private bank. He's helping us create a bond that will allow us to buy a £100 million property portfolio, which is going to be really, really exciting. But we initially were so excited about the taking over of these about 2,000 properties before we realized, wait a sec, how are we going to manage this? And so now we actually had to bring in another company as a shareholder. So even though we've put together the whole structure, funded the whole thing, we're actually bringing in another company. They're getting equity in the deal just because they know how to manage it. We're bringing in another consultant to help us do it. So just the ability to manage properties is a valuable, valuable resource.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. Yes, huge.
Cool. All right. Well, let's keep on going. We got a couple more questions for the community, or from the community, I should say. And this one, I think it really relates to this first one, or your answer to it. It's, how have you managed to be so consistent for all these years?
Consistent.
Yeah. Have you been able to keep going year in and year out? Not that you look like you've been doing it for many years.
Oh, you're so sweet. Robert and I, back in when we started the Rich Dad Company. So let's talk about the Rich Dad Company first, because the real estate, how do I explain this? Before the Rich Dad Company, we had a company that taught entrepreneurial business. One of the courses Robert designed was a course called Creating Wealth. And it talked about how to basically create cash flow in your life, how to create wealth. So from there is where we started our investing. And Robert's Rich Dad has always been Robert's greatest teacher and made his fortunes in real estate, mostly hotels, but hotels are very similar to apartments and very similar to rental properties because you're just renting it out for a shorter period of time. But when we started the Rich Dad Company in '96, our mission statement, and we thought about this for a while of what we wanted to do. Our mission statement is to elevate the financial well-being of humanity. We will never, ever reach that ultimate.
Yeah, exactly. That keeps going, right?
Yeah, there's no end in sight. There's no end thing like we've done it. No, that's not going to happen. But because of that, that's what drives us. I've learned, and we learned so many lessons along the way. I've learned so many lessons in the last year and a half in our business. As I'm now have taken the company back. I'm now the CEO of the company because what had happened to the mission, and again, taking your finger off the pulse and not paying attention, the mission became more about making money and putting money in people's pockets than elevating the financial well-being of humanity.
Of course.
And when I saw that happening, I'm like, okay, we are so off course of the mission that Robert and I originally started. So I guess what keeps us going is that mission will never be completed in our lifetime. And I want to make sure that spirit of Rich Dad, I feel like I'm the keeper of the spirit of Rich Dad.
Well, that's one of the hard things, right? When a founder steps out of the company, to make sure that spirit remains and it doesn't just become a money machine.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And that's what was happening, because one of the key lessons I've learned is if a partner or a key person in your company is not aligned to your mission, and they can say they are, they can say the words, right?
You can look like it, yeah.
and all the right things. But if they're not really at their core aligned to your mission, there's going to be a break, there's going to be upset, there's going to be problems. And one other thing I'll say, Daniel, is when Robert and I started the company, we started it on two principles. And these come from a gentleman named R. Buckminster Fuller, who I know you're aware of.
Oh, of course.
He's a friendly genius. He invented the geodesic dome. He was a philosopher, a visionary, a futurist, and he basically dedicated his life to the betterment of humanity. And he set out to discover the principles of the universe. And two of the principles, one was, the more people I serve, the more effective I become. So that was one of our foundational levels. The more people I serve, the more effective I become. And the second was a thing called angular redundancy. And what angular redundancy is what is it that's needed and wanted today that nobody's doing?
Right.
So, for example, we don't need another gas-powered car. We got plenty. You know, we got many models. That's redundancy. But what is it that is needed and wanted that nobody's doing? And that's why we took on financial education, because the problem we saw was there was no financial education in the school system. So we took upon ourselves that task to bring financial education to the world. So those are the two principles, and we keep operating by those principles and our mission statement. And those are bigger than us. You know, those are much bigger than us. Those are much bigger than putting some money in our pocket. And as long as we stay aligned and stay focused and aware that that's why we do what we do, that keeps us going.
That's amazing. And I love how, because every time we've spent time together, you've always talked about yours and Robert's Rich Dad. Yeah. And I don't know if you realize, I'm sure you do realize, but you have, for so many of us around the world, become our rich dad and rich mom that inspires us to get started. I mean, that's Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the book that got me and Gisela to start to understand the whole thing about assets and liabilities and to want to get into property. Excellent. And most entrepreneurs I speak to say the same thing. I read this book and it started me up, and it's always, this book is always Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Love that. Yeah, we never get tired of that, ever. Never, ever.
No, I can imagine. But I think, too, is the fact that in many ways, obviously, you're still, what you're doing is in spirit of what Robert's Rich Dad was doing with you. And his spirit is living on with you. And hopefully, someone else will pick up the mantle after you and continue that spirit forward. And I think there are hundreds of people willing to pick up that mantle after you and will be doing it. So I think whatever happens, you already have raised, but it will continue to raise the financial knowledge of the humanity.
Well, and thank you for that, because one of the things that we're doing today, and you're very familiar with the Cashflow game because you play it and you
have it in Swedish soon. So we're translated to Swedish. We're waiting for the new version.
They've updated it. Actually went back to the original version and took that original version and updated it. But our goal is, we have today, we have about 2,000 Cashflow clubs registered on our website. And these are clubs that get together on a regular basis. It could be, 6 people. It could be 3,000 people. We have one club that's 8,000 people.
Wow.
And the whole purpose is, if we can get as many Cashflow clubs out there, then it's people teaching people. Robert and I don't have to be teaching. They're teaching each other. But I want the Cashflow game in as many clubs. I want people to have the opportunity to join or start a Cashflow club anywhere in the world, because then the education goes on whether we're here or not.
Exactly.
So that's the goal.
Oh, that's wonderful. And of course, if anyone wants to open up in Sweden, you just reach out to us and we'll help out, and we'll connect them with you guys, obviously. So cool. Before we wrap up, we have one really exciting question from the community that I want to ask you before we end it. And it is, what personal development traits are you personally working on right now?
I work on this every single day. I have my book right here. I get up in the morning with a cup of coffee, and I have one of maybe 6 different personal development books that I read from.
Right.
And then I do a journaling. But what I do is, what I read that morning is I do my best to put into practice during the day. So what I'm working on right now, and I've been practicing it. Okay, so there's a book called Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
Okay, being very present. That's something that I practice every single day. Just being present, especially with people, being present with my environment, and trying to get this little noisy vine that's going to just settle down a little bit and be present and really be in the moment, because that's where the magic happens. That's when you have a real conversation with somebody. That's where thoughts come through when you have an issue or a problem or just a creative thing you're working on. And so that's one thing. The other thing I'm working on, and I don't want to get too out there, but when something happens, whatever happens, to just let it be, not judge it as good or bad,
right?
And not to be passive about it, but to just let it, take it, just say, okay, here it is. This is what happened. Not react to it. If you have to deal with something, then you deal with it. But you deal with it without the reaction. You deal with it and being present with it.
Right.
And so what I'm finding is, and then I had a conversation with one of my key people at our company, and he's like, I hate bringing you all these problems, but every time I bring you a problem, you don't have a reaction. You just deal with it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's just something that happened. Even this whole, it's helping me with this whole pandemic. It's like, okay, so I don't know how it's going to unfold. I don't know how every day is going to unfold. But I wake up in the morning going, I wonder what's going to unfold today. And I look at it like with curiosity and excitement and wonder. And sometimes, like this morning, something happened. I'm like, you're kidding me. Really? I got to deal with that. And so I just stepped back and I went, nope, just something to deal with. And then within minutes, it was handled.
Oh, I love that. I keep hearing this prayer that me and Gisela heard very recently, and we've been hearing it from multiple sources. And I'm going to try to quote it as closely as I can, but it's give me the wisdom, or give me the wisdom to change what I can change, to accept what I cannot. No, sorry, give me the strength to change what I can change and to accept what I cannot, and the wisdom to tell the difference.
Nice. Yes. Nice. I like that.
Yeah, I think it's very telling. And I love that you're being present, because I think so much of when we're in this whole personal development space and we're setting goals, we're so living in the future. I'm consistently living 5-10 years in the future, and to come back and really be here and now is important too.
Yes, and our company, the advisors studied this first, and now our company just studied it, and it's out of A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about awakened doingness. And he said there's 3 stages to it. One is acceptance. So something, you have to deal with something, you don't really want to deal with it, but you need to accept that this is what you need to do, and just accept it, not fight it, not resist it, right? Just accept, okay, I have to do this, I'm going to do it. Like if you have a flat tire on a dark night, you don't really want to change it, but okay, this is what I have to do, accept it. Then you go to enjoyment, which is doing things that you really enjoy doing. And you go through your day enjoying what you're doing. But then the third thing, because you said you mentioned a goal. The third thing is called enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is when you're enjoying what you're doing, but then you have a goal or a vision that you're working towards. Right. So the goal and the vision is the future, but you have to deal in the now in order to get to the future. Yeah. That's enthusiasm. Yeah, there's so much. So I study Eckhart Tolle. I study DeMello. DeMello wrote a book called Awareness. Okay. Michael Singer wrote Untethered Soul. I've got different Indian gurus, Krishnamurti, that I read. So yeah, it's ongoing. I don't think you can, for me, I don't think I would have the success without the personal development, because this gets in my way all the time. And until I
tell me about it
down, right? And the fear and the doubt and all of that, once I can, and I think it's personal development that gives us the confidence that allows us to make mistakes and not beat ourselves up, to learn from them, to grow from them. And it's just, I think, a healthier way to live. So I'm one of the biggest proponents of blending personal development with business development, with financial development. I think that's a key. I think that's one of the secret weapons.
That's amazing. And that's a perfect place to end it. I wish we could go for hours and hours, but I think I got to let you go. But thank you so much for joining us. I know everyone wants to learn more from you, from Robert, from the Rich Dad organization. How do we best get a hold of you and learn from you?
Well, we've got, of course, richdad.com. We've got the real Robert Kiyosaki on Facebook. He's got Instagram. We've got Twitter. Robert likes to get very animated on Twitter. We both have Twitter.
I'm following you both on Twitter. I've seen Robert active on Twitter. Absolutely.
Yes, but it's the real Robert Kiyosaki and the real Kim Kiyosaki. It's amazing how many people want to, piggyback off of us, and they start using our names and things, which is kind of ridiculous. Why would somebody want to be us? I don't know. But yeah, just follow us. And I would really recommend finding a cash flow club in your area. And now, because we're doing so much by Zoom, it maybe that doesn't even have to be in your area. But the cash flow game we created because it's the tool that I think really gets people into action and starts the conversation also about money for families and for couples. So just find a cash flow club, or just go. You can play the cash flow game online for free.
Yeah. And we'll hopefully soon have the delivery of the first of the Swedish cash flow games, which we're just so excited about, which will obviously let everyone know where to get once we have it. So that will be awesome.
Oh, well, thank you, Daniel. Love to you and to Gisela.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who's listened, and stay tuned. I got some very exciting news for you here in a moment. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you, Daniel. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Kim is amazing, isn't she? The things we can take away from this is the fact that she's still improving. She's accomplished so much, and yet every single day she's reading personal development, she's taking the top lessons and putting them into action in her life. She never stops improving. She's got masterminds where she works on deals. Every time I talk to her, she's always on her way to, doing another real estate deal, or just been in a meeting about a real estate deal. She's always working on growing her business, on growing her impact and helping more people, which I love about her, and it's such an inspiration. So I hope you, just like her, are always taking action. Obviously, you're always improving because you listen to this podcast, which puts you instantly in the top 1%. As a thank you, I want to give you our free introduction course to property investing, the 3 simple steps to property investing and the 3 most common mistakes new investors make, and of course, how to avoid them. You can get that by going to momentumgift.com and registering, and we'll give you that full course free of charge, no strings attached, because we want you to succeed. That's why we do this. Kim wants you to succeed. That's why she came on the show. We're so thankful for having you here. Now, for our next episode of the Momentum Investing podcast, I have a very exciting guest. His name is Chris Naugle. Chris is an expert when it comes to money and what he calls privatized banking, which is a secret way of using a bank account that actually lets you use the money and still get interest on it, which sounds insane, right? You deposit money in an account, you then take it out and use the money, and you're still getting interest on it. Incredible? Yes, but he shows this is how the richest people in the world, families like the Rothschilds and the Morgans, and it's families like this, use to build their wealth. They're able to invest money while getting an interest, which is incredible. You're doubling up the profit. So make sure you subscribe to the Momentum Investing podcast. You can find us on any podcasting platform, be it YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and you hit the subscribe button. You'll get a notification every Tuesday when our show comes out, so you can hear the best lessons from the top experts in the field, how you can grow your property portfolio. So thank you so much for listening. I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. Make sure you subscribe to the Momentum Investing podcast. Thank you again. I'm your host, Daniel Wood. I really appreciate you joining us here at Momentum Property Education and the Momentum Investing podcast. And remember, claim your free gift, because we really appreciate you taking this time to join us. So go to momentumgift.com to register now for the 3 simple steps to property investing, 3 most common mistakes new investors make and how to avoid them. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week.